Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of President Joe Biden. We're going to be analyzing both a speech and an interview so we can talk about the different types of body language that we observe. Before we get started with this, I do want to remind you that this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind, but I will be talking about psychological aspects of Joe Biden. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. So what we're going to be looking at first are remarks made by President Joe Biden during the Israel-Hamas conflict. This is from back in October. I'm not picking this for any specific reason. I'm only picking it because it's recent. What we're observing in this can be observed in basically any speech he does. Let's jump right in and I'll explain what we see.
Good afternoon. You know, there are moments in this life, and I mean this literally, when the pure, unadulterated evil.
All right. Now, if you were listening closely to what he was saying, the way that he pronounced unadulterated, he sort of mumbled it out. He didn't say it clearly. And this is something that we hear a lot from Joe Biden. Now, I'm not pointing this out to pick at everything he does, but this is something that is very, very common. And I think there's a variety of reasons this could be happening, but it's very noticeable. And that's really what our focus is going to be on this segment of the video, is his verbal fluency, the way that he speaks, and the way that he enunciates. Let's go back. I'll let you hear that again, and then we're going to let it keep going.
I mean this literally, when the pure, unadulterated evil is unleashed on this world. The people of Israel lived through one such moment this weekend. This was an act of sheer evil.
So, once again, he said this was an act of sheer evil.
This was an act of sheer evil.
Now, most of us know what he's saying, so it doesn't necessarily register every time you hear it. But once again, there's that lack of articulation, the sort of mumbling as he speaks. And this can be concerning for a variety of reasons. We're going to actually look at him from when he was younger to get some sort of baseline of what he used to sound like. But there's a variety of reasons this can happen. It could be due to cognitive decline, which is what I think many people attribute it to. It could be due to issues related to speech fluidity because he had a stutter from when he was younger. So maybe that in some ways is playing into the way that he speaks now. Additionally, it could be due to muscular issues. Now, I'm not a physician, but there's a variety of reasons that this could happen. Now, we're going to talk about the problem that they have not addressed the reason this is happening. Let's keep listening, and then we'll talk more.
This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel.
See, and this is really interesting. So you hear him say slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered.
Not just killed, slaughtered.
Once again, our brains actually are really good at filling in what we're hearing, but he's not pronouncing the words fully. So we're only a few seconds into this, and we keep hearing examples. Listen to this part again.
More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed. Young people massacred while attending a musical festival to celebrate peace. To celebrate peace.
So he raised his eyebrows while he's saying to celebrate peace. He's connecting with the material enough, so he is paying attention to what he's reading. But there's so many various reasons this could be happening, and I'm curious what the reason is. The idea that it's the teleprompter is going too fast or something like that seems very unlikely because we hear this in various different speeches. I've heard commercials from Joe Biden where you can hear him speaking in this way. It seems very, very pervasive, and we have no explanation from the White House why that is. Let's keep listening for a little bit longer, and then we're going to talk about what the White House should do next about this.
Families hid their fear for hours and hours, desperately trying to keep their children quiet to avoid drawing attention. And thousands of wounded, alive but carrying with them the bullet holes and the shrapnel wounds and the memory.
So another one of the things that's challenging about this is that politicians oftentimes use a lot of body language to emphasize what they're talking about. They use their face a lot to draw attention to it when they're speaking. We saw him do that once so far. But other than that, he is remaining relatively expressionless.
You all know these traumas never go away. There's still so many families desperately waiting to hear the fate of their loved ones.
See, the way he said, fate of their loved ones, it did slur a little bit. And I'm not trying to be critical here. There may be a perfectly good explanation for this, but the problem is that over 70% of potential voters do not think that he should run because they think that he's too old. So I'm going to explain to you why this could be a big problem for voters. Now, generally speaking, people do not like ambiguity. We like clarity and answers, particularly when it comes to somebody running the country, medical advice, all of the kinds of things that have really significant, serious consequences. We don't want ambiguity. We want to know exactly what we're getting. And the problem is when you have issues like this that are unexplained, it opens the door for people to go, it makes me anxious to have somebody in the White House if it seems like they are declining cognitively, or if they have some other potential issue and I don't have answers for what I'm observing. Let's go on and look at him a little bit when he was younger and see the difference in how he presents. Now we're going to watch a little bit of a speech from 2015. The goal of this is for you to be able to compare what he was like 8 years ago to how he presents now.
But while I will not be a candidate, I will not be silent. I intend to speak out clearly and forcefully to influence as much as I can where we stand as a party and where we need to go as a nation. And this is what I believe.
That's all I'm going to show of this. I just wanted to show you a quick clip so you could see the difference in how he presents now. It's quite different 8 years ago to the way that he sounds, the way he enunciates, the way that he comes across now. Now we're going to watch Joe Biden speak for a few minutes during a recent 60 Minutes interview.
Because I think they have to know that the President of the United States of America cares deeply about what's happening.
So this is something I don't really know how to explain because I actually don't know what I'm observing. If you look right here, right next to his eye. Now, I talk oftentimes about involuntary body language and what it means. So much of body language is involuntary, at least the meaningful stuff is. But watch this right here.
Because I think they have to know that the President of the United States of America cares deeply about what's happening. Deeply. We have to communicate to the world this is critical. And we're going to do everything in our power to get them home if we can find them.
Now, I'm not going to be pointing out all the times that he has the same sort of verbal issues I've talked about before. I'm sure you're going to notice it plenty. This is going to focus more specifically on his facial body language than the verbal stuff we talked about.
Of course it is, but it's hard to make distinctions. The most important thing.
I oftentimes talk about how we blink when we start feeling stressed. And it seems like as he's speaking, as he's struggling to get words out a little bit, he starts blinking right afterwards. So I do wonder if that stresses him out a little bit. Watch this again. You'll see what I'm talking about.
It's hard to make distinctions. The most important thing is ending. I don't think that's necessary. Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country. I guarantee we're going to provide them everything they need.
Now, one thing that we're noticing is an almost absence of certain types of body language. I talk oftentimes about how we raise our eyebrows to bring attention to our face when we're making a point. It's really important. Or different facial expressions that we make when we want to get points across. Now, his voice is going up and down. There are inflections in his voice, but we're really not seeing much change in his facial expressions.
Is the threat of terrorism in the United States increased?
Yes, I had a meeting this morning with the Homeland Security people, with the FBI, for the Situation Room for the better part of an hour.
So I talked about how he has appropriate inflections at times, but there's also times where it sounds strange. So he's just responding to a question about whether or not there's a possibility for increased terrorism in the United States. Listen to how he says yes after this.
Is the threat of terrorism in the United States increased?
Yes, I had a meeting this morning with the Homeland Security people, with the...
So the content of what he's saying is fine. He's saying yes, he's responding appropriately, he's talking about what happened that day, but the way that he said yes was so flat. It's not that everybody has to be emphatic. I know I tend to be very emphatic. That's not that I expect everybody to talk like I do or to speak and present the way that I do. However, the way that he said yes to that felt a little bit flat, feels a little bit strange to me.
The FBI for the Situation Room for the better part of an hour to discuss how we make sure that we prevent a lone wolf and or any coordinated effort to try to do what was done in synagogues before.
So once again, when he's struggling with words, you see the eyes closing, the eyes blinking a little bit. And so maybe, once again, this could be part of him working through the stutter that he has historically had. Or maybe it's stressing him out when he struggles with getting words out verbally because he knows how important this is. Watch this part again.
To discuss how we make sure that we prevent a lone wolf and or any coordinated effort to try to do what was done in synagogues before, do what was done to Jews in the street. And so we're making a major effort to make sure that doesn't happen.
Once again, when he's struggling with words, there's the blinking again. That's really, honestly, most of the body language we're getting from Joe Biden is that when he struggles to verbalize something, it seems to cause a stress response. Watch this again. He does it right afterward.
The street. And so we're making a major effort to make sure that doesn't happen. The team is talking with them about that and whether there could be a safe zone. We're also talking with the Egyptians, whether there's an outlet to get these children and women out out of that area at this moment.
We're going to move on to the next clip, but as you can see, it does seem like he has an awareness that he's struggling to find the right words. It does seem that there is attention being paid to that, and that does seem to cause him stress. At least that's what the body language would suggest. Now we're going to watch President Biden give part of a speech on 9/11. There's a specific reason we're going to be watching this part, and I will explain it as we go.
I join you on this solemn day to renew our sacred vow. Never forget. Never forget. We never forget. Each of us, each of those precious lives stolen too soon when evil attacked. Ground Zero in New York.
So what we're watching is Joe Biden talking about being at Ground Zero the day after 9/11. He's talking about remembering this, but what's been reported is that he couldn't have been there, that we know for a fact he wasn't there that day. So the question is this a mistake? Is he remembering things wrong? Or is he lying about this? Let's watch this, then we're going to discuss it.
Here in New York, and I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
So it's not that unusual for a speechwriter or somebody to be writing something for a politician and maybe they get a fact wrong. What's unusual is the fact that he didn't say, hey, I wasn't there that day, let's correct this. So the question is, does he not remember that? Is he just saying that because he thinks it happened? Once again, he's not showing any obvious signs of deception, although politicians oftentimes don't when they're given a platform to speak. There's a difference between saying, hey, give a speech and say whatever you want, versus somebody that's being interrogated or somebody that's on trial. When you have full control, you don't really feel that anxious. So people can lie in situations like this and not really show it. Now, if it was somebody that was under oath or somebody that was being interrogated, the pressure is very, very different. So we do tend to see a lot more body language leak out and spill out in those situations because the stakes are high. For him, I don't imagine that he thinks of these stakes as particularly high, so we're not seeing any body language spill out. Because once again, if it's a mistake, it lends credence to that idea that there's cognitive decline. And if he's lying about it, that's not any better. It's just different. So hopefully this is helping you better understand some of what we're seeing with Joe Biden. I do plan to do more videos on him if people are interested. This is sort of a test to see if people find any of this material interesting, because I've got a lot more I could analyze, but this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg. So if people are interested, I'll do more. But let's talk a little bit about what some of the problems and concerns are. As I've illustrated in just these few clips, there are distinct issues that I think people notice, and there's no explanation. And when people don't have an explanation, they're going to assume the worst, particularly with something like this. Because if you elect somebody president, you expect that they're going to be able to protect you. That's one thing that is an essential job of a president. So if people are not believing that he's capable of protecting them, they aren't going to vote for him. So that does become problematic if the White House just ignores people's concerns. I do think somehow this has to be addressed, whether it's that he's gotten an evaluation and they talk about the results, or whether there is a reason that they can logically explain why some of these challenges come up. But just ignoring it for something like this, I really don't think is going to work. Mentally, what I keep wondering is what on earth debates are going to look like if it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump in debates, which is entirely possible at this point, but maybe it won't look like that. It may be somebody else. But I can already imagine that if this is how he presents, that if he's tripping over his words, if he's mumbling a little bit more, and all of those things, it's not going to go well for him. And if they at least are able to explain to the American people why it is that he sometimes trips over his words, why it is that he sometimes mumbles or does not articulate himself well, if they have a logical explanation for that that's acceptable to people, they need to get it out there. Otherwise, this could be disastrous for Democrats in 2024. Hopefully this video has helped you learn a little bit about what we're observing with Joe Biden. If you have any other ideas for videos, please let me know in the comments below. And if there are other politicians you want me to analyze, let me know those as well. Currently, I'm working on videos about AOC and George Santos, so if there's anybody else you want to see, let me know. Last thing before we get wrapped up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.